What are the Olympics like?
There's a lot of tension. The rules are the same, the court's the same, but something's different. You cannot show weakness. You have to be super strong. You are just this robot that you're able to just produce on the court. And we aren't just machines. We're doing this in the name of results, and it's punishing us as a result. So I really had to question, what is success worth if it's coming at the expense of ourselves?
Hello, Dream Chasers. Welcome back to the Seeds of Success podcast. I'm your host, William Rossi, and it is my job to bring you inspiring interviews with people from all over the world who are living their most fulfilling life. Our mission with each episode is to give you the tools to figure out who you are and what you want, and to ultimately be able to build the mindset so that you can go out into the world and make your dream life a reality. Our guest today is Melissa Humana-Paredes. Melissa is an Olympic athlete. She's a world champion, and she is one of the highest ranked beach volleyball athletes in the entire world. In this episode, we walk through Melissa's story, learning about just how much sacrifice it takes to get to the Olympic Games.
This is something that I've worked for my entire life.
We do a deep dive exploration of fear and failure using real world examples that will help you turn your biggest fears into your biggest triumphs. It's really rare that we get to see athletes of Melissa's caliber break down their game in this way. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Melissa Humana-Paredes. Well, Melissa, thank you for being here. It's amazing to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited. I'm also nervous.
Why are you nervous?
I don't know. I don't know.
Too many cameras?
I don't know. I just feel like I want to make sure that I have good answers and have a good story to tell. And
That's why you're here. Yeah, we have it all figured out. We'll weave you into it.
I'm in good hands.
Everything.
I'm in good hands.
You are.
Yeah.
So it's actually funny how I heard of you and know you. I think you know like a small bit of it, but I'll explain it. So I went to watch you play volleyball. You and Brandy played in the finals of the tournament in Montreal, the beach volleyball tournament. So my aunt texted me the morning of that Sunday, I think. And she's like, I have 2 tickets to a beach volleyball tournament, the finals. Do you want to go? And I'm like, there's a beach volleyball tournament in Montreal? Like, what kind of beaches do we have? But then I saw who was in the finals, because I love watching Canadians play, and not that I don't like others, but very much love when Canadians play. So I saw that you guys were in the semis and that you hadn't played that day. But I was like, okay, I think they're going to win. So I'm going to go to this game.
Yeah, you put your money on us.
Yeah, not any actual money, but I should have.
Big money. It still counts.
It still counts. And then, I watched you guys play, and I was like, the tenacity, the emotion, like I loved it. I was like blown away. I hadn't heard of you guys before. Had never watched beach volleyball outside of the Olympics.
Yeah.
But when the Olympics come, like you were saying earlier, I always watch it. I didn't even know there was a pro tournament or anything, like a tour.
Yeah.
So I apologize.
No, don't. No, that I think that's the common consensus. Not a lot of people know. So I'm glad you came.
And you won. They won. So I was like, I got to message these people. And by the power invested in social media,
Seriously.
I just followed you and DM'd you, and here we are.
I think I remember you tagged me in a story, because I was going through all the amazing stories of everyone that was there watching, and I just had the biggest smile on my face every time I was going through, tapping through the stories. And then I saw yours, and I think you said something like, it's your first time watching beach volleyball or something. And that hooks me immediately. When it's someone's first time watching it, I'm like, I need to know more. I need to know if they had fun. I need to know if they liked it, what they thought of the sport, because it's like my life. It's I feel really invested when someone has a good time, or when someone who's never seen the sport is now converted as a fan. I think that speaks volumes to the sport and kind of what we can achieve. So I was so thankful you were there that day, and that we connected, and that you're here now, and we're chatting about, life. It's very cool. I'm glad you were there. It was an epic tournament.
I love the monster block. Is that a thing, like around every tournament?
Every tournament. They have a song, and there's a cheer. Did you learn the cheer?
Monster block. And I just saw like all these people, like, because my sister and I had never been. And I saw these people, like old, young, whatever, everyone, and French Canadian, like, monster block, monster block.
With the accent.
I'm like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah, no, it's epic. I don't get very many monster blocks, because I'm the defender. I'm in the back court, but my partner gets all the monster blocks, and it's so fun for me to watch. It's epic. If I could do one thing in the sport, it would be to get a monster block. I don't get them, but
it's okay. You do other things.
I do other things. Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump into it. Why beach volleyball? That's an interesting sport to get into.
It is.
When you grow up in Canada. Toronto is not a beach destination. Like, we do have water, but I wouldn't call it a beach destination.
Yeah.
So why that sport?
I have a really interesting story of how I got into it, but it's very organic, very natural to who I am and my family. And I have Chilean immigrant parents. My dad played on the Chilean indoor national team for indoor volleyball. And my mom was actually a dancer for the Chilean folkloric troupe, which is super cool. I didn't inherit any of her grace or coordination. I have no idea how to dance. But I did get my dad's kind of ability to play volleyball. When they immigrated to Canada, my dad didn't really know what to do. His degree wasn't recognized, kind of had to start all over again. But what he did know was volleyball. And there was a strong community here. It's small but mighty. And he kind of got himself into the community. And without speaking English, he started coaching up at York University. He ended up doing incredible things after that as well. But that's kind of how he got himself in a community here in Canada. And it was through sport and it was through volleyball. He quickly, very quickly actually, found himself a team that wanted to go to the Olympics. And they wanted to go for beach volleyball, which is strange in Canada. We are a winter sport country. You're right, we don't have very many beaches. We do have Ashbridges Bay, which is a beautiful beach in Toronto where I grew up. And so that's kind of how I got my entrance into the sport. I was about 3 years old when my dad went to the 1996 Atlanta Olympics with his team as a coach. And he brought back a bronze medal for Canada. It's Canada's first and only Olympic medal. In
beach volleyball.
In beach volleyball. In beach volleyball. And I just remember following him around the world on his way to the Olympics and just following the journey. He would leave my brother and I a map and put push pins to every place he had to go to try and qualify. And we would follow him with a string. And I just remember that journey really vividly. And when I was young, I was always at the beach with him at his practices. I was in a gym with him if he was coaching. So for me, I got attached to the sport at a really young age. And I've just never looked back. I think it doesn't happen for a lot of people. Thankfully, my parents were both very supportive and they didn't push anything on my brother or I. My brother didn't take to the sport, or he did, but later in life. And for me, it was very immediate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And so, I mean, you've done a lot more than most people who just play beach volleyball.
Yeah.
Twice in the Olympics.
Yes, one of those
champion.
World champion, yeah. I mean, not a bad road. The first time actually I was at the Olympics, I was there as an alternate.
Okay.
So I didn't actually get to compete, but I was there, kind of.
And tasted it.
I tasted it. That's a great way to say it. I actually it was probably the best experience because I got to experience the Olympics without the pressures of competing and playing. So I got to really feel the Olympic energy and really see what it takes, see all the behind the scenes. And I got to go to all the parties and go experience like being in the Canada House, seeing all the magic, feeling the electricity of the city. We were in Rio in Brazil. It was wild. It was so fun. And so I got to really like get that in my system and get that in my blood and then know like, okay, I know what it takes now. So the next time I'm ready. And so the next time within Tokyo, that was a couple of years ago. It was not the Olympics I dreamed of, or any athlete I'm sure dreams of. It was in the middle of the pandemic. So the stadium was empty. You couldn't leave the village. You couldn't experience the beauty of Tokyo. I mean, they did the best they could and we're so grateful that they put it on. But it just, when I was 3 years old watching my dad do it versus when I thought I was really going to do it and have my first moment on that Olympic stadium court, that's not what I envisioned.
Right. Yeah.
So now we're on to Paris, on to kind of this
That's
third
a dream
journey,
too, though.
which is also a dream. I don't know if you've seen actually where the beach volleyball stadium will be.
No.
Google it. It is incredible. It is right under the Eiffel Tower.
No way.
Yeah, you should insert a picture of where the beach volleyball stadium would be.
I was there in the summer, and that's why I couldn't take a photo on the grass.
Probably. I mean, no, I don't know. It's my fault. I'll take the blame. Next time, you should come for the Olympics next year, and then you can take a photo in the stadium watching us play.
I'm down.
Yeah. So I feel like things happen when they're supposed to happen and how they're supposed to happen, and we have to be flexible and adaptable and just make the best of everything. But Paris is coming very quickly, and
you're at your best, though. No, would you say this is your best?
That's a really good question.
And I'm only saying that because I saw you win. So I'm like, that's pretty good.
You did see us at our best.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, I would say yes, physically, mentally, both as a person and as an athlete. I think I'm at the best part of my life. Individually and as a team, we're improving every single minute, every single second, it feels like. So yeah, there's just a lot of great energy that's around me that I'm feeling heading into Paris and just heading into this next chapter of my life.
Before I ask about the qualifying and everything, and all the work it takes, what are the Olympics like? Like, I know you said, you got to experience it.
Yeah.
Besides Tokyo, I guess, but more Rio? Like, what is that environment like?
Honestly, I will say the thing that struck me the most about the Olympic Games as an outsider, or just kind of like looking in without the pressures of competing, is how it changes you a little bit. You're tense. There's a lot of tension because nothing about the sport changes. The rules are the same. The court's the same. Sand's the same. Everything's the same, but something's different. And it's not a beach volleyball tournament. It's the Olympic Games. It's a games. And so what you see is people changing a little bit. Maybe their routines are changing. Maybe the way that they're approaching things are different. Even though you should be doing technically the same thing that you've been doing your entire career, things are different at the games. There's just this energy. It's electricity. You're nervous. I mean, you're on the biggest stage. It's electrifying. And it's an opportunity to really rise to the occasion. And it's just kind of who's going to do that. And athletes are thinking that about everybody. You go to the village and everyone's there. It's the best in the world at what they do. And it's who's going to take this moment and relish in it. And I think that's who ends up winning the gold medal. Like, it's special. It's very special and it's very fleeting. It goes by like this.
Yeah, I imagine.
It's very fast. Although our tournament is very long, it goes by like this. And it's 4 years of work done in a week, and it's pretty surreal. And I don't actually think, for myself, I can only speak for myself, I don't actually think it's hit me yet, and I don't think it ever will until I retire and get to look back on it. I'm trying to work on that.
It hasn't hit you that you weren't there.
No, the experience of it, like what it means to me, of what I've accomplished. I don't know if I'll really be able to truly appreciate that until it's gone, which is something that I'm trying to work on. And I think in general, we all should be, as people in life, is to be very present in the moment and to really like hone in on and experience life as it's happening. But I think as athletes, when something happens, you're very quick to move on. You learn the lesson and you move on. You take the L or the W and you move on because there's always something upcoming. And maybe it's when you don't have something upcoming anymore, when you decide to retire, that's when it all hits you, and it's probably like a wave. And I think there's like a lot of identity crisis with athletes who retire, but
because without the sport, who are you? That's like, that defines kind of who you are.
There's an element of that for sure. Yeah.
A lot of football players who become like insurance advisors, but they didn't want to, they don't want to do that. They just don't know what to do.
Totally. For sure. Your identity is so wrapped up in it. I think there is this conversation happening now, or this narrative now, that I think athletes are really trying to change, which is that I am more than just an athlete. We aren't just machines. I think that was the narrative for so long, is like, you cannot show weakness. You have to be super strong. You are just this robot that you're able to just produce on the court. And I feel like over the last few years, you start to see the vulnerabilities of athletes coming through, being like, no, I'm actually not okay. And this is actually really hard. And I'm really struggling right now. And this is a weakness of mine. And you're not putting on such a strong front anymore, because we are all humans. And we do have weaknesses, and they're beautiful, and they're also strengths. And so I think there's just a change happening where we're trying to embrace all sides of who we are. We are an athlete. We are a daughter. We are an animal lover. We are a sister. We're a student of life, of nature, of school, of everything. And so I think being put in one box is very limiting. And I think I think it happens. I think society likes to just put people in boxes. So I'm trying to step outside boxes. I think in general, we're trying to step outside boxes, but
it's interesting to hear that. Because I was speaking with one of my friends a few weeks ago, and I was telling him about my problems in life or my career. I'm like, man, this is like this and that is wrong with my career. And he's like, dude, everyone has problems. Doesn't matter what you're doing in life. Everyone has their own set of problems. Was there a specific moment for you? Like, as you were saying, when I think of what you said, I think of like Simone Biles. Like that decision to not compete. Was there, I mean, not a similar of not wanting to compete, but like, did you have one of those experiences?
For me personally,
Yeah.
where I wasn't doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I think we only see the good side of people and things, especially athletes.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we can talk about it if you want to.
If you're open
at that
to
moment.
it.
For sure. Yeah. It was actually multiple, to be honest, multiple moments of those, but they were all kind of centered around the Olympics in Tokyo. Heading into the Olympics, we had, you know, a lot of things happening in our team last minute that just kind of, our coach left us 3 months before the Olympics, which is kind of unheard of. And we were together for 5 years. And that was kind of just a shock to the team, a shock to the system. We had to try and scramble, find a coach last minute. We had to ultimately just go to the Olympics on our own as a team, just me and my partner. And that was a huge obstacle to try and overcome. I think we did the best that we could. I think we really did, but things weren't going well heading into the Olympics. And we were the number 1 seed. We were supposed to win a medal.
Yeah.
The gold medal, but we were supposed to win a medal, be on the podium. We were favored. And we underperformed so poorly. We finished 5th. We finished 5th at the Olympics. We actually had a pretty good start to the tournament, and then just one game where we just did not rise to the occasion.
Right.
Coming out of that was really, really hard for the team. I think it was probably the lowest I've ever felt. It was the most tense energy that we had within our team. It was a really tough moment for us to kind of recover from. And I don't think we ever did. I think we tried to, and we never recovered from it. And it started to get to a point where the team energy and the team dynamics, they weren't serving anybody. It was becoming very negative. It was becoming kind of a toxic environment. And you could just tell that nobody was at their best. And I had this thought in my head, you know, like, this isn't serving me. This isn't serving my teammate. This isn't serving our coach. This isn't serving our support team. Nobody is doing well right now. And we're doing this in the name of sport. We're doing this in the name of trying to succeed. We're doing this in the name of results. And it's punishing us as a result. It's taking us down. And so I really had to question, what is it worth? Like, what is success worth? And what is achievement worth if it's coming at the expense of ourselves, like our mental health and who we are as people, beyond who we are as an athlete. So I really started to question, what was I willing to give up for this, you know? And this is something that I've worked for my entire life as an athlete. It's just, you know, you think about winning and you think about gold medals and you think about success.
Yeah.
And everyone has a different definition, but it is a meritocracy kind of, where you're measured against each other. And so it's kind of black and white in that way. And so it was getting to a point where I was like, it's not worth it for me anymore. I don't like who I'm becoming. I don't like who I'm seeing. I don't like how I'm making people feel around me. And so I made the decision to step away and to leave the
sport,
that team,
the team,
which ultimately meant that I was leaving the sport because I didn't have a backup plan. And when I thought about my other options, I didn't have other options. So I had to think about, we were a year and a half, maybe 2 years out of the Paris Olympic Games. And I had to sit down and say, would I be okay not going or not even trying to go to the Paris Olympic Games, but just removing myself from a situation because it's better for me, even though it means giving up my dream, giving up everything that I've sacrificed, giving up, you know, trying to accomplish something that I committed myself to. I felt like I was giving up, and I felt like I was shooting myself in the foot, but I had to do it. And it was the hardest, scariest decision of my life. And I felt very brave for like a split second, and I felt very courageous. But then I was just flooded with emotions of fear and doubt. And I sat with that for a long time, like many months. But now that I'm, you know, it's a year and a half out of that decision, it was the best decision I could have made. But in that moment, I was really questioning what it was worth. And so I kind of like leaned into those stories of Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka and Michael Phelps and kind of those examples of athletes who are really speaking out about mental health. and what it meant in sport. And I really leaned to them to kind of just like help me through it.
Yeah.
So that was a long tangent story to my moment, but we're doing way better now.
Yeah,
I'm in a much better place. Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy because to a lot of people, they would see finishing 5th in the Olympics as remarkably, like you're remarkably accomplished in that case. For the athlete competing, you have high, and I've been an athlete my whole life, so I completely get it. I'm like, that was not the point. You know, we came here to win. And we didn't win. We didn't get to where we wanted to be.
Yeah.
So I get that. But you said, you know, earlier in when you were talking, you said, what am I willing to give up, or what am I not willing to give up? Like, what is the breaking point? Did you come around to that? Like, what did you learn from that maybe you take with you now?
Absolutely. I think it's really guided how I'm approaching my Olympic process and journey to Paris now. It's very different, and I think a lot of that I have to attribute to the team that I have now with me, and my teammate and my coach now, and also just the way that I'm approaching the sport and the way I'm choosing to make these decisions. It is very different. It's still a very high standard. We're still going after elite level, world-class results and world-class volleyball. And that will never change because we are competitive at heart. And we do sacrifice a lot for this journey. Yeah. But at the same time, actually, I want to say, and at the same time, I don't like but, and at the same time, it's a journey that's filled with connection, and it's filled with authenticity, and it's filled with joy and grace and wonder and adventure, and it's a journey that's filled with no regrets, but it's not one that I'm willing to lose myself for, and it's not one that I'm willing to go to dark places for. And I think I'm trying to rewrite this story and this narrative, because I think all the stories I heard growing up were of athletes who, if you wanted to be the best, if you wanted to be the GOAT, you had to go to these really dark places and be this kind of asshole, or be this person who would win at all costs. And for me, it's not for at all costs anymore. It used to be, I think, to a level I tried to, and it just didn't resonate with me. I think there's a level of balance that has to be there. I think there's a level of self-awareness and introspection and perspective of what we're trying to accomplish. And also, there's so much that's bigger than us at the same time. And I think that gives me some peace as well. But I think this journey, I'm trying to go in a little bit lighter, a little bit more kind to myself. But don't get me wrong, like,
you want to win.
We're pushing. We're still going. And we still go in every single time we step on the sand, every single time we represent Canada, every single time we have a chance to perform and have this platform and be on stage, we're going to show up. But there's also a different way to approach wins and losses that I think I'm taking differently with me now. And I've really enjoyed this journey so far. I mean, we're getting into the nitty-gritty of it now. We're a year out of the game, so that's when things start to really get tense and it really tests you. But so far, I have to say, I think I'm really proud of how I've changed and kind of how I'm entering this new chapter.
Yeah, well, it seems like you're approaching it with a more holistic perspective.
Holistic, absolutely.
That's the key word.
Yeah, it totally is. And I think I have to say, I don't know if this resonates with other athletes who might be watching this, but when I would watch some of these documentaries about like Michael Jordan or Kobe and all these like greats of sport, Tiger Woods, and you would see kind of how they would operate to get to where they wanted to be, to get to the best. And they were incredible. And their stories are incredible, but it never resonated with me because that's just not how I feel like I am inside. But I still am a world champion, and I still am an Olympian in my own way. And I want that to be the story and the narrative of you can still achieve it. There's not just one prescription of how to get there. And I think there are more stories that need to be told of just a different way of achieving success.
Yeah. Well, I love that though, because I think if you apply that to if you apply that to life in general, the understanding of like people think there's only one way to live in a certain sense, right? Like where you grow up, there's ideologies and whatnot of how to live.
Yeah.
But the reality is there's a lot of ways, and I think success is a great example of that. But I'm curious to just circle back a bit.
Yeah.
You were speaking about sacrifices, just the idea of sacrifices. For people who don't know, I'd love for if you explain the type of sacrifices you make in relation to, let's say, like living normal life and whatnot.
Totally.
And I was in Vancouver 3 weeks ago, and I interviewed a bunch of other athletes, Olympic athletes, at the Richmond Oval, if you've been.
Yeah, gorgeous.
So I was working with them, and I was interviewing a few athletes. So I definitely understand from their perspective.
Yeah.
But if you can explain the sacrifices you go through.
For sure. And I think it's also very different for each sport, for each country as well. The main sacrifice that comes to my head, as I'm sure it would with every athlete, is just the time away from home, or what home even is. My home is a big yellow suitcase. That's kind of where I spend the majority of my time. But you miss out on events in your life that maybe your friends wouldn't. And I do want to preface, even though I don't have to, I'm very grateful for the journey that I'm on, and it's a choice that I made. And it's granted me so many incredible opportunities and moments in my life that I would never take away, but I've also missed a lot. Families and friends getting married, families growing up, little kids in my family, nieces and nephews growing up, also having to kind of put my family plans on hold as a female athlete. It changes the conversation there. I think there's just a level of instability, I would say, of traveling so much, which is, again, another beautiful gift of the chosen profession, but it's very exhausting. There's just kind of this unsettling feeling for me, I would say. I think the sacrifice comes in having to put things on hold as well. I think there's a level of a life should look like this, or this is how my friends' lives look like, and mine doesn't look like that at all anymore, and it won't for a while. And that's just something you have to get used to. I think there's also the element of the pursuit of doing this is not as glamorous as it looks. I think it's a huge grind. It's very difficult. It's a 24/7 job. It's a mental, physical obstacle, I would say. And I think, at least for our sport, we are very well compensated, I would say. And we do bear a lot of the expenses. So we have to, historically, you pay for your own flights and your hotels to a tournament. You pay for your coaches' flights and hotels to a tournament. You pay for their salary. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think if we train out of LA, so I have to move and, get those expenses out in LA. And so there are people along the way who will help you in your journey. And I'm super grateful for people who will support me financially, especially with sponsors. And you do have some government funding when the Olympics come to help offset some of those expenses, but you still get a brunt of it. So there's a lot. I think being a professional athlete, representing your country, there's a lot behind the scenes that I don't know if it's well known or public.
Right. But should be.
Yeah. But I think ultimately these are things, they're risks, and you just have to weigh again what's worth it for you or not.
Did you ever have a 9-to-5 stable life job at some point?
I actually worked at Real Sports Bar in Toronto. When I was in university, I was still training and I was going to school, and then I would have the evening shifts. And I remember my shifts would go until 2 a.m. and then that's when we would close, and then I would have 8 a.m. trainings. And I remember I had to wear very small heels, and I would just be so sore, and I would be sleep deprived for training. So it wasn't the best environment. I didn't last long there, just one season really. And then I also actually worked at Lululemon. I did retail for a little bit. Also while I was in university and also training. So after long training days, I would go and have to work retail. And it was honestly, a very supportive and encouraging environment to work in. But it was long, long days. But that's just kind of how you start. So after that, you had to make the decision to invest in yourself. And for the first few years, you're not making a lot of money. You're probably in the red, but you need to commit to this dream wholeheartedly. And so I wasn't able to take on any more jobs. And once they started to do that, then you start to see the investment come back a little bit.
Yeah.
You start to see it in results, and then you start to see it in prize money, and then you start to see it in sponsorships. But you have to believe in yourself first to take that risk and take that leap. But yeah, the traditional 9 to 5 didn't hang around long for me.
Yeah, it didn't last.
No.
That's interesting that you say that, because a lot of people are afraid to take the leap, right? Like, you're unhappy with where you are, and then there's the other side, but people are scared to take that leap.
Sure.
And what I've understood from myself and speaking to a lot of people in your position, like people who are following lives or living lives that they're happy with, it's only when you take that leap that the success tends to accumulate and accelerate.
So interesting how it works that way.
Yeah, it seems like that's the case for you.
It was the case for me. I think, there was a huge opportunity. There are huge risks involved, but I think for me, it was really just questioning, what is the worst thing that could happen, if I take this risk and if I jump, and what is the best thing that could happen if I do it? And being okay with both of those outcomes was important to me. And I think it was how I like to approach it is, I just don't want to look back with regrets. Like, I don't want to look back with a lot of what ifs.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was kind of a no-brainer. And I'm also in a very privileged position. I will say I do have a lot of support from my family and from my friends, and I knew that they would support me no matter what. And not everyone has that kind of support.
Yeah. But it's important to, if you do have that, it's important to, use that. And
it's also important to try and cultivate that. If you don't have it immediately, try and find a support system. Because there's no way I would be able to do this without that support system. And that was very curated by me and my team, and trying to make sure that who's around me is going to give me the energy that I need, but also push me and support me in the way that I need it. And it goes beyond just family and friends. It is also just a big team. So it is hard to take that leap of faith in yourself, especially if you're doing it alone. But
it's worth it, though.
I don't think you will regret it. I don't think you would regret it. I think you would regret it more if you didn't do it and you had the what ifs by the time you're 60,
Yeah. When I was weighing the option of working in finance versus not, I thought of exactly what you were saying, which is like, what is the worst case that can happen? And then I told myself, okay, the worst case, if I say no to this job and I do whatever, is that I spend, let's say, a year learning about myself, traveling, like doing something new, building new skills, meeting new people, and I learn a lot about life. Let's say I make no money and I'm dead broke and whatever. Then I apply to the job that I said no to with a year of life experience, and I become the most interesting person in the bank, and they probably pay me twice as much. It's like,
totally.
Why would I not do the other thing then?
Exactly. And think about the stories that you would have as well. I think that's also something about this journey is my coach is very big on this. He's all about writing stories and having stories to tell. And it's not only about how much money you make, what the results are. It's the little stories of traveling in an airport and the funny things that happen there. Or it's just going to a new country and going to a new restaurant, and just it's those stories, those things that make life. And I think that happens, and that comes with risks. And comes with adventure and choosing to choose curiosity and opportunity, and it's scary.
Yeah,
it's scary every day. It's still scary to me.
Very briefly, because you said that, I'm curious. You've traveled a lot, I'm guessing, obviously.
Yeah.
What's been the one experience, if you have one? I know that's a tough question, but what's been a country that maybe you've enjoyed visiting, or that made you learn something about life or whatnot?
The one that really sticks out to me, I would say, and it is tied to a result, but it was Porridge, Croatia. Beautiful country. Beautiful, beautiful country. It was the first time that my teammate and I, at the time, we won our first gold medal, and it was on Canada Day. And it was also...
That's cool.
It was super cool.
Wow.
It was super cool. And it was also a week after my grandma had passed away. And it was such an emotional time. I remember I had just landed from a tournament to Toronto, and that day I found out my grandma had passed. My family, it had happened, and I was overseas competing, and they didn't want to tell me. So when I landed is when I found out. And actually, when I landed, I was also supposed to go to my graduation at York University. I was supposed to literally go from the airport to my graduation, and I remember I landed, I found out about my grandma, and I was bawling my eyes out on the way to the graduation. I couldn't go. I couldn't walk across the stage. So I missed my graduation. I was just so emotional. I was a wreck. I was also probably just so jet lagged and tired. And then a week later, I had to get back on a plane and go overseas to compete. And I think that was just like a really special moment that it just taught me a lot about mindset. It taught me a lot about resilience. It taught me a lot about love and just like the outlet of a sport, the release of a sport, and how that can also be a form of creativity and expression, and also a little bit of magic. And I have to believe that, you know, my grandma was looking out for me on that day. It just seemed too serendipitous, you know, to win our first gold medal a week after she passed, and on Canada Day in such a beautiful country. It was probably one of the most special moments.
It's like you can't make that up, you know?
Honestly, these are the stories that I want to write down so I never forget them, and I can tell my children and I can just pass on.
Yeah.
Because, it's special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of mindset,
Okay.
great transition. Thanks. We didn't
Nailing
even
it.
try this. But there's a few situations, so I had the privilege of watching you, so I can actually say this with like experience. Obviously, I've also been an athlete my whole life, so I understand also, maybe not to the extent that you do, which is why I want to ask you about it. There are certain situations I want to put you back into in the match, and I want to dissect them.
Wow.
And then apply that to a more general setting. I'll say them to you briefly, but winning, tie, and losing, those are the three keywords. So then we'll go through them.
Okay.
So imagine this, okay? You're in a match and you're down, like you're losing, you know, and you're not at home, like you're not in Canada, so the crowd they're not booing you, but they're not helping you out. You know, they don't care, you know, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
And you're losing, you're getting spanked, but you're not like it's the first set, let's say, you know, and you're just getting spanked. What are the thoughts that are going through your head? Because you haven't lost,
right?
It's not match point. Like you're not, like it's not over, you know, you're just down.
You're just down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you tell yourself in that moment?
I think in those moments, the direction of where I would like my thoughts to go is what's working. And so I'll talk to my teammate or I'll talk to myself about, okay, these are the ways we're getting points right now. So let's lean into that. I try not to go and think about what's not working or why are we losing and frame it that way, because that's where I feel like fear and self-doubt starts to creep in when it has that kind of like negative lens on it. And so I like to kind of reframe, okay, what's working and how can we continue exploiting that or putting ourselves in those positions?
Is there a moment when that happens though? Because I mean, I know like if you're getting spanked, like you're pissed, you know, at a certain point. But then you've got to regroup. How does the regroup happen? Is it just like, is there no way of explaining it, or is
I think it's also dependent on every team, but there are verbal and nonverbal ways to communicate with your teammate where you just know that that's the moment. You just know like how far the point spread is. At that point, if you're getting spanked, you're not even looking at the score, but there's just a moment, a look, whether it's a nice touch between you and your partner, that it happens, or it could be a moment where you choose to just take that little extra second, wipe the sand off, look into the crowd, even just like get out of your own head, get out of the box that you feel like you're in, that you're trapped in, and just get perspective. I think those moments come to me really well also when I'm serving. It's the only time in the game where I have complete control of the ball. It's the only time where I can actually hold the ball. And that's when I kind of like lean into that moment. I can absolutely control what's going to happen to this ball at this moment. And so I like to take that into my own hand and use that as a weapon, however I choose to. So I think those are different kind of like refreshers I can lean into when I feel like I'm in that moment. But to say that the doubt doesn't come in, or the thoughts of like, all right, this set isn't going so well, let's try and get some momentum, let's try and get some confidence for the next set. Sometimes you just surrender. You surrender to that set and you say, okay, you know what? It's not going great, but we're not done. Like there's lots of game left. I think you can surrender the set, but not the game. I think there are also different ways to do that. And I think having that breath in between sets and like reframing, being able to put that one away and start at 0-0 again, like nothing happened. It's a special skill, hard to do, but that's something that I would try and do as well in those moments. And they suck. They happen to me all the time. Just a couple weeks ago, I got spanked. Like it happens. Yeah.
In the game. Yeah.
In the game. In the game.
Sorry.
No, I set you up.
I know
for that.
I set
you
it
up.
too. So
I set you up. Yeah.
because I take it like if you think about other circumstances like not sport related, you think like maybe you got broken up with, like a spouse or a boyfriend, girlfriend breaks up with you, you know, you get fired or like you have a bad day, whatever. So I'm just trying to think about it in the sense of you haven't died, you're not dead, like you're not about to die, but you're just not doing well. So you were talking about reframing. So let's say in a situation of struggle, like if my emotional state right now is struggle, what's a good reframe emotion to reframe it into?
If I'm struggling, I know it's not permanent. And I know I have the abilities to be able to get out of it. Like I know I've done the work and I know I have the support even in that moment to be able to get out of it. It might take a few points. It might take a game, but I have the ability to get out of it. That's kind of how I would like to reframe struggle, is that it's not permanent and I can get out of it. I trust that I've done that work to be able to do it.
Yeah. What are some things that you do behind the scenes, not in the game, that help you get to that level of thinking and consciousness?
Yeah, I think it is honestly self-awareness, being able to be conscious of how I got myself in that position, and then understanding that it is also part of sport or it's part of life to be in struggle. You're not going to win all the time. You're not going to be in favorable positions all the time. And I think I've done the work for me that looks like preparation, making sure I'm going into every tournament and game as best prepared as I can be, whether it's nutrition, physically, mentally, I'm doing the work. I'm visualizing, I'm meditating when I can, I'm calming myself, I'm believing in myself, I'm talking nicely to myself.
Even in those moments?
In those moments especially. Yeah, sometimes I definitely have internal battles where I'm going back and forth between my angel and my devil, and it's like, you're sucking. It's like, nope, be nice, or you're doing okay. And those happen, like they happen for sure. And I think acknowledging those, thanking those thoughts and like letting them leave on their own. I think the work shows up in honesty and asking for help. I think it would be irresponsible of me to try and handle that on my own. And so when I do feel like I'm really struggling and I'm getting insecure and I'm starting to feel doubt creep in, if I don't verbalize that to my teammate who is in that moment there to help me, then I'm shooting myself in the foot. So if I'm not reaching out for help, if I'm not doing the work to create that trust to begin with, that we're entering these high pressure situations or we're entering these moments of struggle, already having a base of trust that I know that I can rely on.
Yeah. Does that come in the form of a timeout?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Timeout, even within a point, being like, I need you to help me right now. Or before the whistle blows, I'm struggling. I don't feel confident right now. Take this down onto. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll say, I don't feel good right now. I need you to take this down for me. Or I'm going to pass you onto this spot on the court and I need you to do something with it. And then we'll regroup. When you can get yourself out of that position and then you can regroup, I can settle in a little bit more. So yeah, there's definitely, I have to be aware of how I'm feeling and then verbalize it and ask for help. It's hard to do. It's hard to do, especially in a sport where you don't want to show weakness. You don't want to make sure the team doesn't know that you're feeling like that, but you need to let your teammate know that you're feeling like that. So there's a balance of like,
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
I don't know if I gave you the right answer.
No, I mean, I think people don't express their emotions enough. And like the fact that you say that tells the other person like, all right, we gotta do something about this, you know, because I'm not feeling good.
Totally.
Usually maybe she's not feeling good, you're not feeling good, but you're not saying it. And then at the end you're like, I wasn't feeling good. And she says it.
Yeah.
Damn, we should have spoke.
And you know, it takes having done that for years to realize,
Right.
well, that's not serving anybody. And so saying it after the fact isn't going to help you. So like, I definitely did that. I definitely tried to hold it in and try to pretend to be super strong and like, oh, I don't have weaknesses, I'm totally fine. But again, that was a lie and that wasn't going to serve anyone. So I did do that and I learned not to do that anymore. And so it's still a work in progress, but I think if you want to be able to like overcome and try and get to where you want to go, you have to have that self-awareness and be in touch with your emotions and be okay to verbalize them.
Yeah. Is there a habit that you practice for that? Or is that your training? Is that your coaches? You said meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that you practice?
I think it really does come with the environment that you create and how you communicate, and building that trust. And that does come, like it has come through therapy, and trying to name my emotions. I think that's something that was really important. It's like naming how I'm feeling, being able to verbalize that, and also feel, again, like the work that's being done is creating this trust with a teammate, whether it's a life partner, a boss, a coworker, your teammate, your family, your friends. I think there has to be some level of communication there, a dynamic there that allows you to express yourself in a safe way. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the hardest work to do. Yeah. I think that's the hardest part. But yeah, I think it also just comes with, I don't want to say it, but time and being with yourself. Yeah. Like really sitting with yourself, sitting with ugly feelings, and learning about who you are and looking at yourself in the mirror. I think that's the hardest thing. But yeah.
That's great. Scenario number 2.
Okay, let's do it.
You're no longer getting spanked
okay.
in the game.
Okay.
We're still talking about the game.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah.
Now it's close. So either you're losing by a bit or you're winning by a bit, one of the two.
Yeah.
Now what's going through your head? How does that change? So either you're winning, you can't get excited about the fact that you're winning. Like you still need to be calm, and you're losing, but you still need to be calm enough to believe that you can win. So how do you go about close calls like that?
When the game starts to get closer, I tend to not look at the score because I think that can freak me out sometimes. Where you start to play the math game of like, oh, only 2 more points. And that's when you start to get in trouble. You get too far ahead of yourself. Or if you're looking at the score and then you start thinking about, oh, if we didn't get that point, or if we got that point, then we would be closer. And then you start living in the past. And so you're just creating these scenarios when you should really be in the moment. And so when that happens, I think there's an element of like stripping it back to foundations, kind of getting simple and kind of like lowering your frequency a little bit, because you can get really heightened. The closer you get to the end of the game, the closer, the game gets, you can start to feel your heart rate get crazier. You can start to feel just like butterflies in your stomach. And so there has to be an element of being a little bit more even keel, a little bit more neutral in how you approach it, as if the game was 0-0 again.
How do you do that though? Like that seems really hard to do. Seems great though, but
it is really hard to do. And I think ultimately it's just like all you can do is think about the skill that you have coming up next. So if it's like 20-20 in the third set, mm-hmm. and I'm about to get a serve, all I can think about is what am I going to do with my feet right now? Which way are they going to move? What area of the court am I going to take? How are my hands going to get together? Where do I want to pass it? What are they showing me right now? So it's kind of just like analyzing what information is given to me in that moment, and being able to use that to dictate. I can't get carried away. Like I can't look too far. It's literally just skill by skill. Once the pass is done, okay, now she's going to set the ball. Now I have to move my feet to go this way. I have to break it down so small and minutely. Yeah. And sometimes you're just in a flow where not that many thoughts are going through your mind because you've done it so many times. You've been there before that you just kind of like, it is a flow. But it is trying to be as in the moment as you can be, because if you get carried away, you're going to lose it. I feel like you're going to lose that point if you start, and it's happened to me a lot. You see it a lot in the sport where a team could be up 4 points and then they lose that lead. And it's because I think they're just getting too carried away with we're so close, rather than there's still this moment, there's still this point that you need to get before you're going to win. And you see sometimes those losses or those wins get taken away from them because they're getting too carried away with the end goal. That's happened to me where I'm already starting to visualize what the celebration is going to be like before we even got the point. And I think that's really dangerous. I mean, it's hard. It's hard not to do that, but it is really dangerous to like be in the moment. I do usually wear a necklace with a pendant when I feel myself starting to get carried away, I start to rub it. It says breathe on my pendant. It's very beautiful. And so I start to rub it and it kind of brings me back in the moment. Or I'll start to wiggle my toes in the sand just to be like, okay, you're back here. You're in this moment. You'll see some players do some little tweaks as well. Like some of them will like hit the side of their legs, or they'll like rub their fingers together. Little things to bring you back into the moment.
Yeah.
They're usually physical techniques or something like that, just to like be present with your body. I think that's how I would approach that moment. And I think also, if I look back at those moments, especially in Montreal, when I had an opportunity, when I could feel the game was in my hands, I would risk it. I would like gamble. Like if I had an opportunity, we were going to turn a point, I would go for it. I would just kind of like do everything, risk it, like not there's sometimes in the games where you just kind of like put it in there. You want to be safe about it. You don't want to like make a mistake. And when you start thinking about not making a mistake, then you make mistakes. So instead of having that mindset, it's just about go for the point, like really go get it.
Yeah.
Like be that person that steps up. I think it's like something that I like to also like when we get close to the end of the game, that's kind of the mentality.
How do you know though? How do you know when to take that risk? Is that like is that a feeling?
Sometimes it's a feeling, sometimes it's a gamble. Sometimes you take that risk and it doesn't work out, and that's okay. At least you took the risk. I would rather look back at that moment and be like, at least I took the risk, rather than tried to play it safe and then lost the game. Because if I look back and be like, I didn't try my ultimate at that moment, then I'm like, okay, well, I still had something left in the tank. If I really tried to go for it, and I can look back and honestly say that I did, then I can't ask for anything more.
Right. It seems like what you're saying is a mix of, and again, like everything you're saying, I'm trying to put it through this like a filter of life, bring it into life. It seems like the two things you're talking about is one, when you're under pressure, think of the fundamentals and come back to just the practice that you've done. And I heard this last week actually from someone else I was interviewing, but he's like, practice doesn't make perfect practice makes perfect. I guess you know that too, right? Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
So that and breathing seems to be,
how did I not
people
talk
like
about
even
that?
though you have to breathe to live, it feels like most people are not really harnessing their breath as much as they could be. You are talking about that though.
There's a couple techniques too where it literally takes 2 to 3 breaths for like to bring you back in the moment, and that is really all it takes. I think there is, just to go back on that one little with the perfection. That's something I tried to achieve and realize I think it's unattainable. So I don't reach for perfection anymore. But that is something that I tried. Like I that sentence, that phrase, that kind of mentality is something that I tried to embody growing up in the sport and trying to like get to my full potential. And I realized that wasn't going to get me there, but it definitely does for other people. But everyone has, their own technique or their own way of doing it.
Okay, scenario 3.
Okay, yeah.
You are doing the spanking.
Yeah.
Let's say.
Yeah.
Still in the game, yeah. We're still in the game. So you're winning, things are going well. I assume you're having fun, you're enjoying things.
Yeah.
What's going through your head to stay in the lead, not lose that? You spoke about it earlier, right? Some people think about the celebration, and then before they know it, they're actually neck and neck, or they're losing. What goes through your mind when you're winning?
I think there are two different types of winning. I think there's winning so dominantly that sometimes you feel bad. It's like,
okay, yeah.
Like,
does that happen to you?
Yeah, where you have such a big lead and you're playing so well that the other team can't do anything. Where it's like you kind of feel bad, and so in those moments, you just kind of like go with it. I think the energy also changes a little bit with the team where, your celebrations change a little bit. You're not like too over about it.
You're not pouring it all out.
No.
Yeah.
No. So that's a different type of win where it's like, okay, you got it in the bag. You're feeling it. You've got control. Then you're winning by only 3 points, 3 or 4 points. That's still a good, a healthy lead, but it's still close where for me, I'm not thinking about the lead. I'm almost thinking reverse, like we're tied. That's kind of how I like to approach it because, again, you can get carried away. And I don't think that you would like become complacent if you have a 3-4 point lead. I think especially at the level that we play at, the amount of momentum swings there are in our sport and the level of the other teams, anyone can come back. It takes literally a couple bad calls or a couple good plays from them, and then it's a tie game again. And so you have to stay on it harder than ever before. It's almost like there's this heightened energy of almost to a point where it's like you're desperate to not let the lead go, which also can get too tense. But there's this element of like, you feel like a fire in your belly, and there's like a little bit, for me, there's like a little bit of like anger of like, we're not letting this lead go. Like, we're staying on this, and we're not even going to start thinking about what we have to do. We're thinking about what we're going to do in this very moment. So I'll look at my partner if we have the opportunity to serve, and I say, we're going to run this play, and we're going to bait her into doing this. And we just become like tigers or lions of like, we're pouncing on them. Like, we can't let them know that we're taking the foot off at all. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. There's just kind of like, we got to go all the way to the end line. Like, it's just, you got to go full throttle, because you can be really close. And it's happened where you can have 3 or 4 points and then you lose. And that feeling you never want to experience again. And I'm probably contradicting what I've been saying before about trying, like, you should technically, if my sports psych heard this, he'd be like, you should be playing every point as if it's 0-0. Every point weighs the same, and you shouldn't change how you're doing depending on what the score is or anything like that. Like, the work that you do is to keep consistency. So I am for sure contradicting that, but I'm putting myself back in those moments, and I know how our team operates, and what I do is like, you just get like hungry. Mm-hmm. I think you just get really hungry when you feel that you're on it, you're playing well, and you want to stay on it. You just kind of like dial it up. You just dial it up a little bit.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think people need that, right? Momentum. It's like, I don't know if you ever played video games, but you microwave, you heat up. Yeah. You start heating up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
for
then
sure.
You keep pouring, not pouring it on, but you just keep the momentum up.
I think it is being mindful of the flow of the game and the momentum of the game. I think it is also very fleeting. Things can change like this in a second. So you want to make sure that if you have control of it, you want to stay on it. I think there's a tendency maybe for some people to just change their frequency a little bit. And I think when you're feeling the good momentum, you want to be a dominant competitor. Mm-hmm. You stay on it. And you not only stay on it, but you together as a team, you remind each other what you're going to do in that moment. I think there's more communication that happens. I think there's just a level of being on the same page as your teammate, of really taking control of the game, controlling only what you can, mm-hmm. And making sure that is dialed in. The attention to detail in those moments is so heightened, and it should be all the time. But I feel like in those moments especially, you just don't want it. You just don't want it to slip out of your hands. So you want the control.
Mm. What are your thoughts on fear? I like that. I feel like that one really hit you.
Fear, I think, is inevitable. Mm-hmm. I think it's a powerful emotion. I think it can be really debilitating, and it can cause you to miss out on things. I think it can also be a really incredible wake-up call. I think it can show you what you need to lean into. I think fear is something to look out for and to be thankful for, because I think it does provide you with some direction of what you're trying to avoid and what you probably shouldn't. Yeah. I mean, in a certain context, obviously you're not running into fire. Like, right. There's certain types of fear that you do listen to.
You're not running into jumping out of the sky. Yeah.
You're not doing crazy things. You should listen to your fear, and you should listen to your instincts for sure, and be safe. But I think when I feel fear, and fear of failure specifically, or fear of looking stupid, or fear of, just
you run towards that?
I'm aware of it.
You're aware of it.
I guess I do run towards it, in that what I do on a daily basis is scary. I think putting myself out there on a court in front of the whole world is scary. I think there's absolutely a fear of not rising up to the occasion. But I don't like to frame it as that. I think it's an opportunity. So I guess I do run towards it.
Yeah. What about failure? Like, I like that you just touched up on it, but how do you perceive failure?
I've changed my tune on it, I think. I think I used to see failure as like a defining moment. I think I used to see it as, oh, if I fail, this means I'm not good. Or, oh, if I fail, or when I would fail, I would be like, yep, this just further proves that I don't belong here, or that I should choose something different because, yeah, I clearly am not good at this, even though it would be a delusional thought. It could be a very, very vulnerable moment, a very weak moment that you could catch yourself having those negative thoughts. Now I don't see it that way. I have failed a lot this year. It's been a very successful year, but I failed a lot. And it's so motivating. I'm so hungry. I leave those moments of failure like immediately wanting to get back on the court, like immediately wanting to get back to training, or immediately like wanting to talk to my coach and my teammate and be like, that sucked, but I still enjoyed it. Like, this is what I feel like we can learn from this. I've definitely tried to embrace it differently. Like, we just lost 2 days ago in the finals, and it sucked. And it hurts. It hurts, like, really immediately. It hurts. And I think I'm getting over it faster. And I think what really helps as well is, again, having like really positive, really constructive debriefs with the team, understanding where we all were in those moments, mentally, physically, how we were doing. But also the perspective for me is important. When I go out, I leave the court, and you see a ton of young athletes who want a picture with you, that want your autograph, that you just inspired, even though you feel like you failed, or like you feel like you let people down, you've still made an impact. I think those moments I used to avoid. I used to be like so angry and just like leave the court, not want to look at anyone. And now I am trying to do a better job of taking the time. And I feel like those moments are more healing for me than it is, or it's cooler for me than it is for them. So I like to like enjoy that. It changes my tune quite quickly. I remember we were also in Germany a couple weeks ago. We had just lost pretty badly, and we were, again, like destined to do well. And there was such a lovely big crowd outside waiting for us. And at first I was, just signing autographs, and I was like pretty upset about it. And then I just couldn't help. By the end of it, I was just smiling. These kids were just making me smile. These people were just like, cheering me up. And it's just like that reframing, that perspective of like, you know what, it's bigger than this. And there's more than just that moment. You have redemption, and there's also more to you than this. I had people coming up being like, oh, we just love your energy out there. We know you lost, but like, you just look like as a team, you're loving each other, you're loving life, you're enjoying the moment. And that's also what I want to make sure that I'm doing. So yeah, I think failure now is nothing to be afraid of. And I think I enjoy it more than I ever thought I would.
You've replaced it with learning, I'm guessing.
It is. It's absolutely learning. There's always something you can learn from. But I think, yeah, it's not something, I realize these moments are so fleeting. It's not something I want to like, I don't want those moments to pass me by, because they're still part of life. And I feel like I used to just like be really negative about it, and it would take me days to get over it. And I would just be a bitch to people around me because I was just so upset about the loss. And I was like, that's unnecessary. Life is life.
Yeah. It's not that bad. Basically.
It's not that bad.
Yeah.
It's not that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything still works. Still
Exactly.
healthy. Family's good.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
What about discipline? So athletes are renowned, especially Olympic athletes, world champions, are renowned for discipline. So what is discipline to you?
Ooh. I think discipline is ultimately like keeping that promise to yourself. I think it's whatever you said that you would do, that you would commit to, and you would do. That's why I feel like saying things out loud is so powerful, because it holds you accountable. I think to me, discipline is consistency. I think there's an element of showing up. However you wake up every day is going to be different, I think. You know, your day, you'll wake up and you'll have a different feeling. You'll be in a different space, mind space, body space. But I think you have a routine and you've committed yourself to it. And so by showing up in different ways and by still showing up, I think that's discipline.
So when it's cold, when it's raining, when you don't want to train, when you had a bad day, when you don't like yourself, how do you stick with it? What are things that you do, or things you tell yourself, or ways you go about life?
Those days happen a lot. I think that like the physical, mental burnout of traveling the world and of elite sports and high pressure moments and high pressure competition, it really weighs on you. So to say that I wake up like excited every day would be a lie. It's not the reality, I think, for most people. And so I think what I do is I really try and lean into the small things that do bring me little joy. And that usually comes in forms of connection with a teammate or with a family member or a friend. It comes in the form of music. If I wake up and I am not feeling great, I'm not feeling motivated, it's cold out, I don't want to go out there, my body's sore, I have about a 10 to 15 minute bike ride from my house to practice, and I listen to a playlist, and that usually changes my tune pretty quickly. I really turn to music a lot. I think being able to create a day, a small win in the day, to be able to start your day. I used to try and do this thing where I would start my day with something exceptional is going to happen to me today. When I would have a bad day, or I'd wake up feeling a little unmotivated. And that way I feel like I'm looking for something great. So it could be the smallest thing, but be like, oh, okay, that's going to make my day better.
Right.
Because, and I think it's okay to have it be something small, because I think it's unrealistic to be able to be motivated every single day.
Yeah.
Even the Olympians, even the world champions, they struggle. And they need to find like some form of internal or external way to get out of it. But I think for me, it's those small details. And also, I think it's okay to admit that you don't want to be there. Like sometimes we could show up to practice and our coach would be like, how are you doing? Be like, I had a shit sleep and I don't feel like I'm going to have a great practice. And if they know that, that would help the environment, rather than you keeping it in and then you're awful to deal with and no one knows what's going on with you. I think being able to be honest about that will change the environment, and will also let them to like cater a little bit to you, and also try and make your day a little bit better.
But what about getting on that bike? Like, so you said,
yeah.
I'm telling my coach at practice that I didn't have a good day, or like I didn't sleep well.
Yeah.
But you're at practice.
Yeah.
And then you listen to music while you're on your bike to go to practice, but you're on your bike. What about before getting on the bike? Like, how do we get on that bike?
Wow. Yeah, for me, that's just kind of like a no-brainer. That's just like the first step for me to get out of bed. You get dressed, you already have things prepared the day before. That makes everything a lot easier. I love breakfast, so I look forward to that no matter what. And then for me, I feel like I have committed to myself. I feel like I would let myself down if I didn't do this. And I feel like I would let my teammate down if I didn't get on the bike. And I feel like I would let down the people who are working so hard for my dream if I didn't get on the bike. And so sometimes it does take a little bit of people are relying on me to show up, and that helps me get there. Even if I'm not in it, I know that this is also somebody else's dream, not just mine. But I know that doesn't help if you don't have a team.
Yeah. What if I was alone?
If you were alone,
Yeah.
that would be really freaking hard. I don't know. Do you have advice? How do you do it?
But kind of like what you said, which is not helpful to the audience, but like at a certain point, once you've done it enough, you just know that you have to do it. You know, like there's a result I want to get to. If I don't do this, I will not feel good today.
Yeah.
I will not feel good tomorrow.
Yeah.
The whole day I will suffer because I don't do this. And then kind of like we said before, once I'm doing it, I then say it's not that bad. You know, like
Yeah.
if it's raining and I want to go running, I'm like, I make my excuses, you know, whatever. And then I say, okay, shut up, it's enough, you know, you had your moment.
Yeah.
And then I go out and I run in the rain. I'm like, hey, it's pretty nice, you know, like rain feels good, like the music's nice, feet are moving, like I'm doing it, you know, I'm in.
It's so true. It's so true. It's like when you start doing it, I think you're already proving to yourself that you're doing hard things. Like you can do hard things when it feels hard. And I think there are days, honestly, I think there have been moments where I let the excuses get to me and I didn't get on the bike. And I was like, I'm not doing it today. Mm-hmm. And the way that I felt at the end of that day was worse than if I had gone. And so it's like, what it is doing it both ways, realizing this one feels better. This one is better for me. I know I'm better for it as well. It's going through the moment and giving in. Sometimes you give in and you say, I'm not going to do it today. And you realize how that feels. For me, it's never felt better. I know that I'm a better person. I'm a better Melissa when I get on that bike.
Yeah.
And what got me there was knowing that when I didn't get on the bike, I wasn't a good version of myself.
Yeah.
So I think it's a trial and error and realizing, yeah, maybe some days I don't want to get on the bike and I won't, and I don't want to do that again.
Yeah. And people ask me every now and then of like, how do you get better at that, right? How do you get better at doing that? And it sucks. Like, again, it kind of sucks to hear because I've realized, like, having consumed so much content and spoken to so many people, that life is very simple. Like, it's really not complicated. So my advice to them, which is not helpful, but it is very helpful. Like, it's not helpful in the sense of they don't want to hear that. They want a hack or a secret or whatever. I'm like, just do it.
Oh my gosh.
The only way to get better at being disciplined is to do it. Like, you can't read enough things about it. You just have to do it. Like, if you want to run and you want to get better at running, then you have to run.
Yeah.
You can't walk, you can't bike, you have to run. And the only way to get better at being more disciplined is to do things consistently.
Exactly. And I think there is an element too of, if you're going to start, I think accountability is huge. And to have someone you're accountable for, I know that is huge for me. My teammate is like my person, right? Like, I'm dependent on, there's like a codependency there that's probably not healthy, but you are reliant, someone's reliant on you and you're reliant on someone. And so you want to come through for someone. And I think having someone that you can verbally say your dreams out loud to, say your problems out loud to, just have someone you can be accountable to will make everything a little bit easier. They can just check up on you. They can just remind you. They can just do a 1-2 punch, be like, hey, you want to come down to the beach today? Hey, are you going to come to the gym today? Hey, are you going to come to the office today? Like that's a good, huge, powerful stepping stone.
And you can find that even if you're alone. Like, you can just ask a friend or...
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Okay, great. Okay, so I have 5 questions that I ask everybody at the end of each episode.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you watch...
Is it rapid fire?
Not really.
Okay.
They don't come that fast.
Okay.
I mean, they could. It depends on your answer. Don't be offended. If you watch any of my videos, like, it's not surprising, but first question is, how old are you?
I'm 30 years old.
And what does it feel like to be 30?
It's been the most introspective, wondrous time of my life, where I feel like I'm finally coming into my own person. I think that my 30th year on this planet has been the best one so far. And I'm just like, I'm looking forward to the rest. I think, honestly, life just gets better and better. Yeah.
What was it like to turn 30? Because I know everyone has that preconception of turning 30 is the end of the world.
I
and
know.
whatever.
I think it's really interesting because I have a complicated relationship, I think, with time and age, because my life is very much dictated on 4-year cycles. So for me, the big one would be after Paris next year, when I would be turning 32. I'm turning 31 this year. That I think is my 30, because that is kind of the end of an era. It's the end of that Olympic cycle. And so for me, I calculate my life in 4-year cycles. So 30 wasn't bad. Like, I was in the middle of an Olympic cycle, and so we just kept pushing it. But I think after an Olympic cycle, that's when you really evaluate what you're going to do. Are you going to continue to another Olympic cycle? That's kind of my 30, or that's kind of my new chapter, is having to make those questions and answer those difficult decisions at that moment. So 30 for me was a breeze. I think 32 will be really hard. So come back when I'm 32 and ask me that again.
I noticed earlier in the podcast, you were saying, when you spoke about the example of your time of struggle, you said 2 years before the Paris Olympics. And I was like, the Paris Olympics haven't happened. So like, why is she speaking? Like, I was like, is she trying to say this in a way where people are watching in 5 years and they're like, oh, looking back. But then I realized your life is governed, like, and it's run by the Olympic Games, which I thought is really interesting, because you basically shaped your life around your goal.
Yeah.
And I think that's fascinating. So I wanted to point that out, because I did remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for noticing that. That's just how I guess I talk, and it is how I plan my life. Like, that is something I never really realized, but
like, you could have said last year.
Right. No, but it's only 4 years. That's how I think. Only 4 years. It's wild. It's a wild way to think about it. But I think next year will be a big decision year for me. And I think that's what I'm kind of nervous about, but also excited for, because it's opportunity. Opportunity is great.
Yeah. Okay. Third question.
Okay. These are not rapid fire.
No. What is something that when you were younger, you put a lot of emphasis on, but as you've gone older, you've realized isn't actually that important?
What a great question. I don't know if this is the best answer, but I think my appearance. I think just like the vanity of caring about what people think about me. And I used to... Like, I used to really like care about how I would look, and I would really stress out about it. And now I think I'm just really comfortable with who I am. I think that just comes with, like, I honestly think it comes with time and like getting to know yourself. But yeah, I don't think it matters as much. I think it matters about who you are, and, you know, what you believe in and how you make people feel, more than the color of your hair, what your hair looks like. Do you have a pimple on your face?
Yeah.
You know, it's like small, minute, vain things like that, that I think, especially the young women growing up, I think there's a lot of pressure to look a certain way, especially in a sport like beach volleyball as well. You can get carried away with that. But yeah, that's not, I feel very proud to be able to say that's not something that I put a lot of energy into. I think my energy is in other places.
Nice. If you had advice for someone who cared a lot about what other people thought of them, someone younger, maybe a younger version of yourself, is there something you would say?
I think you have so much more to offer than first glance. And I think you're really only going to want people around you who see you, and like really lean into those people. I think that would be my best advice.
Nice. Okay. I snuck one in there.
Yeah, let's do it.
Question 4.
Yeah.
What is a big mistake that you've made, or a big regret that you have, that you've learned a valuable lesson from?
I don't think I'm one of those people that says, I don't regret anything in my life because I'm where I'm at because of it. I think I do have, I think there are things I look back on that I wish I would have done differently. And a lot of that does come with, honestly, it comes from fear of hurting people. If I think back to maybe how I ended relationships in the past, I maybe wasn't as honest as I probably should have been, or with myself or with the person. I think I would have let things drag on for a little bit more, and that would result in more hurt. And so I think I've learned that sometimes the bravest thing to do and the easiest thing to do is the hardest thing. I think I would have liked to redo some of those or had those conversations again, in maybe a more mature way. I think not shying away from difficult situations, and letting kind of that fear take over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a great quote for you.
Let's hear it.
I feel like you must have heard of it.
Okay.
But, it's a Stoic quote. I don't know who it's by. I should know because I say it all the time. But easy life, hard choices. Hard life, easy choices. So if you make the easy choices, you'll have a hard life. If you make the hard choices, you'll have an easy life. Which is what you just said, basically.
100%.
Yeah. So I'm not going to take credit for it. That's what you said.
I
just summed
appreciate
it up in a quote.
That's a great quote. That's
Okay.
a great quote.
The final thing is, so you were very nice of you to fill out this daily journal, which you put a lot of effort into. Hey there. I hope that you're enjoying the conversation so far. At Sprouht, we're really big on not just listening to advice, but also taking action on it. At the beginning of my own self-growth journey, I was lost, and I was trying to find the answers to questions about who I was and what I wanted from life. Was I good enough to be the person that I wanted to be? Did I have what it takes to be able to craft that life? And how would I even get started in doing that? I turned to journaling as an answer, and after 7 years of having done it consistently, it gave me the tools to finally find fulfillment in many aspects of my life. Now, I took all of those 7 years of experience, knowledge, to go from who I used to be to where I am at now, and I created a 365-day workbook out of it. This 365-day workbook is a fully guided journal intended to bring you on your own year-long journey to outlining, creating, and living your version of your most fulfilling life. We've actually only created a limited batch of these, and if you are serious about making positive big changes to your life, which if you're listening to this podcast, you must be, I highly recommend trying it out. You can get your copy at sprouht.com or by clicking the link in the description of this episode. A better life is just one click away. So I wanted to go into, I don't want to go into the entry specifically, but you did put one piece of life advice for today. I'd be curious if you can read it and then touch up on why you chose that one and what it means.
I wrote this to myself. You do difficult things daily. And I wrote that because this is a conversation I've been having with my therapist and my psychologist about my capabilities, and that kind of belief in myself, that I sometimes shy away from, or if doubt starts creeping in and those negative thoughts start creeping in, I remind myself that I can do difficult things. I do difficult things daily. And today was a particularly difficult day for me. And I think I was letting the negativity weigh on me a little bit more than I should. And so for me, when I had the opportunity to write this down, that's what was calling to me, was how I can handle difficult things and how I get through them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Where can we find you? Besides, like, all over the world.
I'm mostly on Instagram at Melissa Humana-Paredes.
We're gonna spell that.
Yeah,
now.
please do. It's a long Spanish name. But yeah, that's where you can find me, and then follow our journey to the Olympics. Cheer us on.
I bought the Montreal that they make, like, every tournament, I think, has a
jersey. Yeah.
I bought it. Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet.
It's great.
I love that you
I
love
wear
it.
it all the time. Yeah.
Great. Oh my God, I love it. You know that it'll be there again next year
In Montreal?
for the next 5 years. So
Good for us, honestly.
honestly,
More
Montreal.
monster blocks.
Yeah. We love the monster vlogs.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That was awesome.
That was incredible.
You're amazing.
Oh, that was really therapeutic.
Yeah.
Very cathartic. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you haven't yet purchased your copy of our 365-day workbook, which we had mentioned earlier in this episode, I highly recommend you do so. It is by far the best tool that you can have in your corner if you're hoping to make serious positive change to your life this year. And other than that, subscribe. We are releasing inspiring interviews every single week, sometimes even twice a week. Thanks again for listening. If there's one thing I can remind you, it is that everything in life comes down to your mindset. It's a mindset.